Black Sheep Shipping presents The Vulture's Song. Content warnings can be found in the description.
Gabriel, pourquoi me montes-tu en anglais?
J'ai trouvé ce livre entre des pierres dans un mur. Il est écrit en anglais. Je ne comprends pas l'écriture.
Give it to me. I come here for the quiet, but you come here because you have the eyes of a bat.
Tu veux dire les oreilles?
No, because you are both blind. Just let me read it. The Journal of Nicolas Jean Moreau, September the 5th, 1787. I am writing this journal for my wife, my angel. My Anne is dear to me, so I am practicing my English as a way to prove that I am able to grow as a husband and father. My handwriting is fair, but illegible drunk, as she has found me so many times before. I will not drink wine again in this or any other life. My children and wife are more important than piquet or beer or any other evil. I have been to my wife a poor husband, and I have been a poor father to my sons. I will go to be employed and provide my wage to those who depend on me during such hard times as these have proven to be. I love my family, and in these troubles, they are my guiding light. The Journal of Nicolas Jean Moreau, September the 18th, 1787. I have drunk only water and milk since August the 20th. I have not gambled since August the 18th. I have become employed among carriers by a gaunt man named Renaud Vulture Crone, a gravedigger of Les Innocents Cimetières, who was in turn employed by the church and ordered by the king to move the dead from this consecrated earth to the quarries under Paris. The man does not speak often, but when he does it, is as if his words are cutting and falling through his throat. An affliction sorely caused by smoke or similar self-inflicted malady. I can only hope that his words are as unpleasant for him to speak as they are for others to hear. Monsieur Crone is enormously tall, but stands with a terrible and crooked arch in his back that seems to cause him no pain, but makes him look as if he is always suspended over us, broken slightly to the left of his hips. This is why I would expect him to be unfit for digging, as he could not be more than 10 years older than myself. His coat seems to have once been expensive and well made, but his clothes are otherwise aged and tattered by his profession, and what I would expect to be the man's own neglect. If he did not move, he would resemble the corpses he tends. I am to be one of 3 dozen labourers divided into 2 groups. The larger of the 2 digs and sifts through sections of the earth until they have confidence that there are no bodies sleeping deeper under their feet. The second group, to which I have been assigned, moves largely poorly made wooden carts from the church grounds to the entrance of the quarries. This is some distance away, farther still, with the weight of the dead threatening to bend the wood of the cart to breaking. It is as if the dead crave the earth and wish to spill out into the street and claw their way downward. I will assist them. The carts are moved in the night so as not to alarm common people using stitched black veils blessed by a priest. There is less respect given to the living than to the dead by Renaud. They are gone, and we remain, but to him, all are only unripe corpses that have not yet fallen from the tree into his basket. It brings me to the point of boiling rage when he gestures faintly without speaking. It is a command that I am to stop my cart like I am his mule. I do not understand why he inspects even the oldest and most desiccated corpses so closely. He always begins by taking off their shoes. He feels them with his hands, starting at the feet and moving up to their skulls, and then down their arms before waving his hands for me to turn them over to feel their backs. The only time I have ever seen this awful man smile has been when he fed the ribs of a young girl before ripping open her dress and taking what must have been a hidden... He is looking for what I must assume are tokens of silver, although I have considered this ritual may only be something he takes pleasure in. Great pleasure. I have not yet entered the quarries, but will happily, if only to avoid the smell emanating from the rotting earth above and this equally unpleasant man. The rancid smell of my countrymen sickens all of France, and Paris is at its center. The Journal of Nicolas Jean Moreau, October the 5th, 1787. Today my youngest son, Etienne, is celebrating his 7th anniversary. His hair, by some strange miracle, is darkening from a brown, nearing blonde, to an almost black shade matching my own. I would never doubt the faithfulness of my Anne, but it will be magnificent when my brother next visits and I might finally prove to him that he is a crétin. I have hope that Etienne's hair is not some sign that this city has touched him. I would shield him from all the evil of the world if I were able. My beautiful Anne was able to buy some apples with only minor defects from the servant of a wealthy house in the northern district. It was more than we can afford, given the growing demand for food. But Etienne had never tasted apples. After his fever in spring, Anne and I dreaded that he might never have the chance. I've not seen my wife so happy since his birth. Jean complained about not having meat, but became quieter and more easily tolerated while he chewed his own apple and bread. Jean is of a restless age and thinks of himself as royal, a nobleman that everyone had forgotten. I was only able to spend half the day with my family. I needed to sleep to have the strength to return to Les Innocents. I am resolved to my duties, but must steady my hands without the weight of a wine bottle resting in my palm. I am told by Renaud that there is a clear path to an empty chamber, to which we are to take the bones marked by circles, carved into the walls and ceilings. Putain, c'est les mêmes. Where did you find this?
Pas loin d'ici, dans une impasse.
Gabriel, je connais ces marques. Elles mènent à la Seine. Où est-ce que t'as trouvé ça? Putain! I fear for my Anne. The reality of what I am doing is very serious and caution is all but absent. The Parisian dead have been treated by France with an intense and passionate apathy, but to move them deep into the tunnels is more than a spiritual danger for those pious and God-fearing men. The other laborers claim that the chill of the tunnels is increased with every step down as they move farther from God. But I do not share their faith or concern myself with their notions of heaven and the devil. I cannot spare my concern. I must give it all to the real danger of a collapse or losing my way with no hope of being discovered. I will not be added to my brothers under the streets of Paris. The Journal of Nicolas Jean Moreau, October the 9th, 1787. Last night I carried 9 1/3 carts of bones and skin like rags into the tunnels. Renaud told me the markings and the path underground were well lit. It only requires of me a short walk of 12 minutes and 10 more to return once my cart has been emptied. I feel reborn every time I emerge from our tomb to see the darkened sky above me. It makes me realize that I did not appreciate the stars, the songs of birds above me. The bones are piled in the center of a large chamber that measures at minimum 10 toises in width and only slightly less than twice as many toises in length. The ceiling is not visible to me, but must be very high to produce such an echo. There are no stars inside. There is a white, foul-smelling ichor that coats the ground and along the walls. Small piles of bones that have been set aside from the center pile, seemingly sorted and ordered by type. I particularly dislike a small pile of skulls much smaller than my own. I intend to find who is doing this and stop them. The air is unpleasant, but not as pungent as the city above. However, as the number of dead grows, their smell grows with them. The Journal of Nicolas Jean Moreau, October the 20th, 1787. Today I am an imbecile. The work of moving the dead is not social, and the other men with their carts do not often exchange words. However, tonight a man named Simon shared with me something that brought me great unease. I have for 2 weeks been following circles scratched into the walls of the tunnels, as I was instructed to do so by Krone. I have in total added some 150 carts of empty flesh and bone to the same pile, which never seems to increase in size. I now know the other men with their carts have been told by Renaud to follow crosses painted on the walls in tar. I thought that these crosses near the entrance were merely wards to comfort those Christians who would otherwise lack the fortitude to continue deeper. I do not know why I have been traveling to this chamber, but from all those I have spoken to, I have been alone in my endeavor. I must assume that Simon and the others are the only ones not given special instruction. Some number of others must be lying to me and laughing, as there are obvious changes to the placements of bones, sufficient to prove that I am not the only living man making deposits to the chamber. Certainly others must be visiting at length to sort these bones so meticulously. The Journal of Nicolas Jean Moreau, December the 1st, 1787. 2 weeks and 1 day ago, I questioned Monsieur Krone about the strangeness of my chamber. I came to his office with the expectation that I would be either sent home without further hope for employment, or sent to the cart of another by his own hand in some fit of ghoulish rage. I felt I had no choice. Instead, he first became very quiet and made his demeanor that of a child who had been caught lying by his mother. Oh la la. He turned from me and pulled a copper key from his coat and used it to unlock a desk drawer, somewhere below my vision. Renaud turned back to me with 30 livres. With 3 weeks' pay in my hands, I was in a state of giddy confusion. I do not care what he does with the dead, and I had clearly made a wise decision in confronting him if he was so readily willing to bribe me. While still in a stupor I had not known since my last taste of wine, he told me that the bones in my cart were important and chosen personally by him for some favor to the church. I did not understand what he meant, and risking this, I questioned him further. He claims that holy spirits whisper to him through cracks in the walls of the quarry. They give him instruction. Ribs, legs, infant skulls and heels, finger bones of beggars, hips, the spines of women, and all with specific measurement. I could not push the issue as he quickly recognized my willingness to accept my new wage. Lunatic. I myself am a lunatic to match his own insanity. I accept my newly understood duties and implied silence. We are lunatics together now, but with 30 livres a week for the same work, I saw no harm in his indulgence. I had my own. For 2 weeks and 60 livres, I have pulled my cart of chosen dead for Monsieur Crone. The Journal of Nicolas Jean Moreau, December the 3rd, 1787. Tonight, my cart was heavy. It was much heavier than it should have felt, despite only being half full from the level of the veil. I could feel the shift of weight to the left wheel. Something heavy lay underneath the bones I had been given to deliver. Once I found my way to the chamber, as I always did, I turned my back to the pile to avoid looking at it, as I had become accustomed to doing. My cart emptied with some considerable effort, and I heard the sound of iron striking stone, but could not see what had made the sound underneath the pile of small ribs. Tools must have been put on my cart by mistake. The Journal of Nicolas Jean Moreau, December the 7th, 1787. Monsieur Crone has not been seen in 3 days, yet the work continues in his absence. I worry for my 30 livres, but know that my family will not go hungry. I have kept a good portion of my new wages secret from Anne, behind a loose brick in our bedroom. I have arranged with a nearby butcher to purchase 2 small chickens and salt. We will have one on Christmas Day, and the other will be salted and shared between us until the New Year. I will only be gathering the spices that my Anne is familiar with. My skill with them is poor, and without her, my sons would eat chicken seasoned with dirt and good intentions. Etienne has been fighting with his brother. Jean is old enough to work, and Etienne, despite his young age, wishes to help his family. Oh, c'est mignon. I am so proud of my sons. Anne has made them good men, and I know that if I were to become lost underground, or to some illness, they would provide for her. Etienne has asked to join his brother Jean at Les Halles, working as a porter, but Jean has harshly denied him. Etienne is far too small to lift the barrels, even if he could lie convincingly about his age. Jean was cruel, but I did not stop him. Etienne should be with his mother at this age. I am trying to find apprenticeships for them both in reputable trades. Jean first. My father knew a tailor in Le Marais, and if he remembers me, then I will ask for him to teach my Jean. I expect it will take a dowry, but soon I will be able to pay it. The Journal of Nicolas Jean Moreau, December the 11th, 1787. Monsieur Crone has been seen again, killing the hopes of many like me that he was dying in Le Hôtel Dieu. He has been behaving in a mad way, much more than he had previously. Renaud is covered in little cuts and bruises, and has been searching through the carts of the other workers for bones he considers to be for his project, feverishly and openly. Renaud has taken to carrying a large hatchet, and should a body of the right size and type come to him, he will sever the piece he needs in front of all there to witness it. He makes me stand beside him with my cart, ready to receive them. The other laborers look at me with pity and suspicion. They think of me as the right hand of Le Vautour, and treat me with a disgusted respect. He seems to need a right hand now. His own appears to have been mangled in some way. I hope to escape that fate. The Journal of Nicolas Jean Moreau, December the 15th, 1787. To myself, I have played a victim, but it is a performance for no other. I am not forced into this role and have willingly participated in the bizarre crime Renaud has committed. Even if I do not know what exactly he is doing to the bones, I know the nature of the man. It is not unusual to have pious and evil men claim to hear God, tell them to do terrible, unhuman things, but I have heard Renaud talking back to his God. In the quarries, Voices stretch great distances, leading a man to believe he is mere breaths away from another, some great distance away. I heard Renaud begging God for patience and mercy. Non, pas merci. Mercy. His God needs the dead, but Les Innocents is emptying too quickly. I did not find Renaud or our conspirators, who must be in some illicit trade, but evidence of their meeting remained. An enormous grey quill, the length of my forearm, not native to any bird residing in a city. A quill for making lists of anatomy to be disappeared and sold, I'm sure. Soon, Les Innocents will be empty, and I will be free of Renaud. The Journal of Nicolas Jean Moreau, December the 23rd, 1787. The number of labourers moving bodies has been reduced by half. Each day that the work comes closer to ending makes Renaud more determined to slow our efforts. 2 men fewer than yesterday. 2 men fewer than the day before. My carts have been heavy. As the number of bodies lessen, the weight of what I have done grows. It is no longer a mystery to me that I am carrying iron into the tunnels for a purpose that I do not understand. I do not believe in my Anne's God, but I must hope he is not in the quarries to witness me. One day my family will forgive me. The Journal of Nicolas Jean Moreau, Christmas, 1787. My Anne knows I am a liar. She interrogated me privately about my hidden wealth, and I could not explain it. I was stupid not to realize that she would suspect gambling. The idea of using my wage to create a small fortune had appealed to me many times, but I could not bring myself to risk my family for what I knew was compulsion. She is right that I have betrayed her. I have been told to return in the new year as an honest man, or my children will be taken by her to be raised with her sisters in the countryside far from Paris. My English has improved beyond my aunt's expectations, as I am writing this quite drunk. Ah mais arrête! Pas ici! Mais taisez-vous! I hoped she would be proud. I will go to the cemetery tonight and collect my final 30 pieces of silver. I may kill Renaud. The Journal of Nicolas Jean Moreau, December the 26th, 1787. Damned Renaud! Les Innocents had been closed completely without any indication of why. There were still bodies to be moved, and the carts had all been taken out and half filled. I believed that Renaud was attempting to cheat me out of my wage. Those livres had cost me greatly, and I, in a state of fury, helped by drunken stupor, broke into his office in an attempt to reach Renaud. I realize now how idiotic that was, as he could very easily have me jailed for an intrusion as obviously criminal as this. I did not find him, but instead found myself possessed. This spirited madness is the only way that I can account for my actions, even with the guidance of 2 bottles of wine. I knew that he was in the quarries. Now, with a clear head, I see that there is no way for me to have known where in the tunnels he had been. But out of habit, I journeyed to my pile. My first voyage, without my cart, which caused me to move much faster down the narrow path, weighed down only by guilt and my fortune. As I neared where I knew Renaud must be, my pace slowed. It was only when I first heard the singing that I realized I was in total darkness. It did not seem to me as odd at the time, but all the lamps had been extinguished, and I had found my way by memory alone. I hoped that I could perform the same miracle a second time. The voices I heard were sweet and pure, quiet, but growing louder with every step I took. I could not understand in what language they were singing. It was not English or Latin. certainly not French. Without doubt, it was a choir. It had been completely impossible for me to identify how many voices sang, but in a different way, each sounded full of despair. I wept uncontrollably, worsening as I came closer to the source. Nothing I have ever heard could compare to that music. When I saw the entrance to the chamber, I began to run towards it, overcome with emotion. Forgetting Renaud, I felt like a child, running, crying into his mother's arms. I stopped at an enormous stone arch, seeing that this was not the room I knew. The door was far too large, and the dim glow from inside illuminated white marbled floor. My hesitation led me to the side of the arch, peering in while still concealing my presence from those unknown to me. This vast chamber, like my own, was lit along the walls and stretched upwards into darkness, but was much larger. A chasm that extended beyond the imagination. I observed no one and moved inside, believing that the music emanated from some deeper place within. Being closer to the walls in the faint light revealed to me my true purpose, and the purpose of many who must have come before me. Everything was composed of bone. The walls, the sconces holding the torches, the archways, and even the floor, which I had mistaken as marble, was what I believe now to be some form of concrete. Enormous mosaics appeared every 10 or so paces, depicting biblical scenes in monochrome. I studied them as best I could in the low light, and with a limited education. The details were impossibly fine, and depicted angels with one exception. A figure, who was much larger, was placed as a focus in many scenes, while the angels were dressed in robes formed of the longer bones of the body, or with their heads represented by naked skulls. This figure was composed entirely of small bones, likely coming from fingers and toes. He was shaped like a man, but for no clear reason lacked all detail, remained a pale white shadow. It was not long before the music was spoiled by discordant notes. My fascination turned to black terror, and all the wine which had clouded my senses escaped my body. Pained screaming. I remembered the way Renaud had been acting, and that he had not been working alone. He could not have constructed a cathedral such as this in 100 lifetimes. I did not worry that Renaud or any other would hear my approach. All sound I produced was covered by the invisible chorus. I had no plan, but knew that I must discover the extent of our crimes. What horrible act had I enabled Renaud to commit? Through a smaller door formed by stacked spines, I saw a man who was unknown to me. He was forced to bloodied knees and bound to a series of crude, rusted iron rods resembling a chair. His eyes were red and bloodshot. His lips were black and split. The chair was warped, and with it, the man. I do not know how long he was in that position, but his arms and legs were curved unnaturally into the shape of a screw. It is important you understand. They were not broken. I compelled myself to look deeper into this room, which was only dimly lit. The smell was beyond rancid, even compared to the horrors of the city above. I could see dozens of what were once men and women bound to iron, stretched and bent in ways that should have killed them. Half-skinned bodies and piles of discarded flesh littered the floor, decomposing at their feet. Death would be a mercy, and I knew I could not help them. Most that I could see did not scream. but the begging and pained cries of those hidden by the darkness formed their own chorus, fighting for its right to be heard. A chorus that gained strength as those still conscious addressed me directly, forcing me backwards. There must have been hundreds of voices. If Renaud was there, I should not find him. Le Vulture was more dangerous than I could have ever understood. After a moment of consideration, still weeping, although for a very different reason than before, I vomited violently and stumbled out of the room, leaning against one of his gruesome mosaics. I might have been able to save them if I had not made such a terrible error. A single skull fell from just above me, loosened by my impact against the bones below. At my feet, it shattered. The silence that followed was so absolute that my own heart could be heard in my ears and theirs. Then I saw the stars. Hundreds, thousands of points of light reflecting off the torches around me. Pairs of eyes fixed on mine. They never took them off me, not even as they swarmed down the walls in tight spirals, knocking bones free to shatter below as a white rain at my feet. The steps were so frequent and numerous that it sounded as if I were being hunted by rain. So like them, I ran. In this nightmare, I still had the sense to break a torch from the wall before fleeing into the tunnels. Now, seeing the walls of unknown quarries, I knew that I was lost. I ran for a league before stopping to listen for my pursuers. The quarry can be deceptive, but I could tell from the growing sound that they would find me soon if they had not already. I was desperate. I was not thinking. When I found a set of ancient wooden supports, I set fire to them, hoping to collapse the tunnel and save myself from these things. I ran deep into this section, only to discover it unfinished. I tried to return, to escape the collapse, but only seconds later did the thunder of stone echo towards me. I have for the first time in many years considered the Lord's Prayer. To say it here, after what I have seen, and what I know pursues me, would be an offense to any god who might hear it. Anne's god is far from this place. I am trapped in my own plot under Paris. It was I who dug it myself, aided by no other, paid in full. While I may be doomed, I must hope that this account might give insight to others. If you have found this journal, then I beg you to seal these tunnels. The light is dying, and I can feel the pointed movement of wings against the walls. While I have more to confess, I must choose my words with great care and commit one final selfish act. Je t'aime, Anne. Je t'aime, Jean. Je t'aime, Étienne. Je suis désolée d'avoir été si insensée. Sachez que vous n'avez pas été abandonnés. Pray that I am meant for hell. Heaven is close. I know where this happened, Gabriel.
Non, je connais ce regard. You are another lunatic.
Oui, lâche. Aujourd'hui, c'est dimanche. Let's go to church.
This episode was written and edited by D.V. Clarke and directed by Alex Valentino. Ella was played by Thea Finch, and Gabriel was played by Banto. This episode was announced by Alexander Hanley, with musical theme by Onlooker Air, and cover art by OddOblivion. This episode of Black Sheep Shipping is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 4.0 international license. Thanks for listening.